In today's video, we're going to discuss all the latest NHL trade talk, including the Montreal Canadiens, the Philadelphia Flyers, and the latest on Artemi Panarin and the Columbus Blue Jackets. We'll discuss all that coming up next. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. If you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. We review and discuss all 31 NHL teams, so if you're a huge hockey fan, consider subscribing and clicking the bell so you don't miss anything. So as I mentioned off the top today, we have some more NHL trade talk to discuss. Now some of these are actual rumors and some of these are just kind of speculation around what these teams might be looking to do. Now some good news on the Montreal Canadiens front, they are getting back defenseman Shea Weber, who's finally ready to make his return from his injury that he's been out for so long for. At the same time though, they also placed defenseman Karl Alzner on waivers. He did clear and he's now been sent down to the minors. So that's obviously a contract that they're certainly regretting. I mean, obviously when Alzner was signed, he was given a longer term deal and expected to really provide some defensive stability there on the back end. Up until joining the Montreal Canadiens, Karl Alzner had a pretty decent NHL career, always had a pretty solid plus-minus, was always a pretty known as a pretty good, solid, reliable defensive defenseman, but his time in Montreal hasn't really gone as planned so far, and now he finds himself down in the minors. So they're looking for somebody who can likely play that left side, hopefully play with Shea Weber, so obviously they need somebody who can handle, ideally, top pairing minutes, but at least top four type of minutes. I mean, sometimes with top defensemen around the NHL, you do see them sometimes have some shifts with multiple defensive partners just because they don't always have that number two guy who can play the big minutes alongside the number one guy. So we'll see what the Montreal Canadiens decide to do, but if you take a look around the league and look at some teams that might be struggling and maybe looking to unload some players, I mean, certainly a couple teams that come to mind are the LA Kings and the St. Louis Blues. So far, those two teams are certainly having seasons that we didn't really see coming and seasons that I'm sure they would rather wish were different. But of course, that usually means they're likely going to have to do some retooling here and they're likely open for business to make some trades. If you take a look at some potential targets here for Montreal with those teams, you could look to LA for a player here that we've talked about before, and that might be defenseman Jake Muzzin. Jake Muzzin certainly, for the most part of his career, has been a pretty decent top four left shot defenseman, so he might fit well on that side. If you take a look at through the rest of the Kings defense corps, not really sure there's anybody else that's kind of mentioned there that would fit. I mean, Alec Martinez has been mentioned in trade rumors, but where he's a right shot, they might prefer somebody who's more on the left side. But then again, they could potentially look to do more of a defensive shakeup. But right now, I would say Muzzin would likely be the most likely if they go down that route of talking to the Kings. If they go to the Blues do have a number of experienced left shot defensemen. It's not really sure that many of them are attractive. I mean, the main one that would be attractive would be Joel Edmondson, although I think out of all the guys on the back end for the Blues team, that he'd probably be the guy they would be least likely wanting to move. They also have experienced defensemen like Jay Bouwmeester and Carl Gunnarsson, but not really sure that either of those really would provide the help that the Montreal Canadiens are looking for. But either way, the Habs are known to be shopping for a defenseman, ideally to play that left side along Shea Weber. So time will tell here what the Montreal Canadiens do, but they certainly have made it known that they're actively looking for that, and we'll see what they come up with. Now jumping over and take a look here at the latest on Artemi Panarin with the Columbus Blue Jackets. Now this is something that's been drawn out really since the summer, since they were eligible to talk extension. The Blue Jackets were certainly trying to make those discussions happen. They're very interested, obviously, in keeping him in the fold long term. He's been a terrific player for them, a terrific addition that they obtained from the Chicago Blackhawks. And he made it known that he wasn't ready to talk extension, and he wasn't interested in talking about any kind of deals, long term or not. So they kind of put things at a standstill. I'm sure it also made the team a little uneasy on how to proceed with this guy, because it's a guy they want to keep in the fold and lock up long term, and he's kind of reluctant to show that same commitment in return. Now, fortunately for the Blue Jackets, they've had a pretty good start to the NHL season. Panarin's playing well, he's producing well, the team's winning. So the latest reports here we have indicate that Artemi Panarin is certainly quite happy in Columbus at this point, and is certainly happy to play out the season and fulfill his contract. Now, one of the articles I came across here, I'm going to put a snippet up on the screen, kind of give you a quote here from his agent. According to his agent, Artemi Panarin is genuinely happy in Columbus this season, but the pending unrestricted free agent is still not ready to discuss a contract extension with the Blue Jackets. Dan Milstein confirmed Monday that he and Panarin will sit down to discuss the situation next month, as TSN hockey insider Pierre LeBrun reported last week. We would sit down for business as soon as Artemi is ready, Milstein told The Athletic. He is genuinely happy with the way things are going this season. We will talk business during the break. For now, no pressure from the club. It's all about winning. So even though Artemi Panarin had previously discussed before that he didn't want to talk business at all during the season, it looks as though he might at least be open to having some business discussions during their either All-Star break or during their bye week here that'll be coming up over the next month or so. So we'll see. Right now he's happy. There was also a quote from General Manager Jarmo Kekalainen indicating that the Columbus Blue Jackets have not engaged in any trade discussions around Panarin in quite some time. It looks as though that it was confirmed before that they did have some kind of discussions around that player when it was first known. He didn't want to have a long-term contract discussion like before the season began. I think they were exploring some options at that point to see what was out there for a potential move. But that's really just doing their due diligence. I'm not really sure they were actively trying to make something happen there. But as their preference is all along here to keep the player, obviously, but they're going to do what's best for the organization. So at this point, they're really trying hard to keep him in the organization. They want to sign him. And right now he's happy, and there might be some hope that maybe he will stay. So Columbus Blue Jackets fans can rest easy that he will at least remain there for the remaining of the season, and the team is doing everything in its power to retain their superstar. Jump over here and take a look at the Philadelphia Flyers now. As we know, the Flyers are a team that kind of had some surprising news here in the last little while, firing general manager Ron Hextall. We talked about this in a video yesterday, and obviously president of hockey operations Paul Holmgren released a statement saying they had philosophical differences. As we had discussed before, General Manager Ron Hextall was in his 5th year on the job with the Flyers organization as general manager. When he was first brought on board, had a longer-term plan, and at this point, really hadn't realized the results that they were looking for. They were inconsistent with making the playoffs. They've had trouble, having any kind of consistent goaltending, which has gone on well before Hextall was there, but still something that he wasn't able to kind of come up with any resolutions for. Their defense has been hot and cold as well. So obviously this team had a different vision for what they wanted than Hextall did. Hextall was willing to continue being patient, and obviously Holmgren and ownership were being a little less patient and want to see some results now. They don't want to continue to be patient here. They felt like they've given Hextall enough time with the patience and should be getting better results. Now, during their press conference here that they discussed the Hextall firing, Paul Holmgren did kind of allude to the fact that the next general manager will decide the fate of head coach Dave Hextall, that he wasn't making that decision. Once that general manager is hired, then obviously that'll be their choice to either keep the coaching staff or make changes as they see fit. Now, some of the names that we've heard out there, these are just speculation. I'm not sure we have any confirmation that they're actually, having interviews or talking, but some names that some of the hockey insiders have kind of floated out there as possible replacements, include former Islanders general manager Gareth Snow. They've talked about maybe Dean Lombardi, who's currently working with the Flyers organization in a different capacity. When I did the Hextall firing video yesterday, that's the first thing that came to my mind. Not to say that he might necessarily be the best choice, but he certainly has a lot of experience, and he's won before the Stanley Cup, so clearly, at some point he has had that success. He's already in the organization, knows the team, so it would be a little bit more of a seamless transaction and seamless fit to kind of have him take over. Obviously, he knew Hextall quite well if they worked together back in LA as well, so it seems like that might be an easy choice, but hard to say if it's the best choice. A few other names floated around out there as well was former Carolina Hurricanes GM and President Ron Francis, as well as Minnesota Wild General Manager Chuck Fletcher. So since all those guys have been let go from their previous posts, they've yet to find new employment with new teams. So there's certainly names that are out there that have experience and certainly could take over and maybe make some moves here with the Flyers. So we'll see. Time will tell. It's not really clear exactly how long Holmgren's taking here, but the search is on, and I don't imagine this is going to be something to take too long. But the other interesting note here that kind of came from that press conference was the fact that he alluded to the fact that goaltending has been such an issue and that he might not even wait for the new general manager to come on board, that he very well may go shopping for a goaltender himself. I mean, it's certainly something that needs to be addressed with this team and needs to be addressed as soon as possible. Really, I mean, you could make the argument, like we did mention yesterday, that they really haven't had a consistent, solid goaltender since Hextall himself was a player, guarding the crease for the Flyers so many years ago. They've had so many times that they've brought in guys that have inconsistent efforts and results in that position. They've had some of the bigger contracts come out and didn't really pay off. Like, for example, the big one that comes to mind is Ilya Bryzgalov. I mean, Holmgren was the general manager before Hextall, and he didn't get this done either. So really hard to say what kind of rash move he might make. I mean, Holmgren certainly made some pretty quick trades in the past. We saw when he traded Jeff Carter, Mike Richards. There's a lot of deals that we kind of saw kind of come out of nowhere with him when he was managing the Post here as general manager of the Flyers in the past. So will be interesting. I mean, if you take a look around the league, some potential goaltenders who you would think might be available. There's certainly a few goalies that come to mind who could be available via trade, but some of them are also in the Metropolitan Division, so I would think that would be unlikely to happen. But if you take around and look around the rest of the league, for example, I know Edmonton's kind of frustrated with Cam Talbot. St. Louis has certainly had their ups and downs with goaltender Jake Allen. He's a goalie that might be available, and so we might very well see, potentially with the Blues, if Allen were available, I mean, maybe Brian Elliott, who had his best time as a goaltender with the Blues, maybe those two guys who played so long together, maybe we could end up seeing a swap of some capacity in that regard, maybe making a bigger trade. Those two teams have certainly hooked up before in the past, so they're very familiar with each other. It's just a thought on my part. I have no idea if that would actually happen or not. Just a suggestion, but if you take a look around, some of the goalies that could be available, is certainly a team that comes to mind as a team we've already discussed here, having a poor season, poor results. It needs to shake things up, and obviously getting some change in goal with that team would certainly be something that would make sense as well. So could those two teams possibly hook up in a trade? Certainly a possibility here, but as I say, we don't have any reason to link those two teams together just yet. Just a fun thought here on my part. Another team in the West, too, with some inconsistent goaltending is Calgary Flames with Mike Smith. Now, obviously, Smith is an older goaltender as well. So it certainly looks like he might have lost his starting job to David Riddick in Calgary. So Mike Smith's kind of fallen out of favor there, being the starter. So maybe that could be a fit as well. It's something that they wouldn't have to commit to too long term, and see if they can kind of create a situation here for like a stopgap. But I mean, they still have to do something with guys like Elliott and Neuwirth, and they have a lot of NHL contractor goalies on their roster and need to figure out something. So if they trade for a goaltender, they're likely going to have at least one move out as well to kind of make room. There's not going to need that many goaltenders on the roster. So interesting times in Philadelphia. There's certainly some fairly surprising news. I can understand from some fans' perspective. If you take a look at Flyers' situation under Hextall, he's been there long enough that they should have more consistent results and have that long-term vision kind of realized. Certainly has been stubborn to make any more trades right now to really shake up this roster or even to fire the coaching staff. So ultimately, I think that's why he paid the price here. But we'll see what kind of moves Holmgren might make in the interim while he's looking for that general manager, and what they may do beyond that once the new general manager is brought in. Flyers goaltending has been a long-term question here that's yet to be answered. So what is the solution for the Flyers in the net? If you're new to the channel here, hope you consider subscribing. We cover all 31 NHL teams, and there's plenty of content here for all hockey fans to enjoy. So if you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button as well. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you very much for watching, everybody. We will catch you next time.